Hi, this is Graphically Alex coming at you with all things fat related. If that's something that interests you, please subscribe. I'd love to have you. Today we will be covering William because I have a migraine. So I always make sure to cover William when I'm not at my best or when I feel super low dopamine, can't focus, or have a migraine. Because I don't like William. So I like to react to him when I don't feel good. Because it like feeds into an association. No, but he's just a lot, and I feel like it helps me when I'm not totally lucid to react to him because he just, I've told you guys it's a little bit personal with him, where it's just a lot. But we're just going to be reading him today, so it shouldn't be as bad. It should be better. William is just going full force. I almost said full hog. Full horse. Oh my gosh. I'm going to be making a lot of weird talking mistakes because I am really migraine-y. But he is really going full force into politicizing the toxic ritualistic, which is what I call E Fall by Letter D on the channel, and I will be calling it that. I do like the way he titled this because I don't really have to edit it. So thank you, William. Thank you. All right. Let's go. Toxic Ritualistic Maxing, Body Obsession is Consuming Men on the Right by William Hornby. Put the food down. Stop eating it for me. Stop eating. Do it for me. Do it for America first. Do it for the groypers. No more fatties. No more disgusting pigs, raved Nick Fuentes while announcing his significant downsizing to the internet last week. And if you're asking who that is, I'm sorry to say that you're about to find out. Nick Fuentes is a white nationalist known primarily for his use of incel, involuntary... I don't even know if I can say that on YouTube. I don't know. Do you think it's a big deal? Oh, man. Whatever. I'm not editing it. This is what goes through my mind. You guys are getting like a behind the scenes of my thought process because my defenses are low because I have a migraine. And it's a bad one today. It's bad. Anyways, you know what that word means. Language, racism, anti-LGBTQ values, and anti-Semitism, including blank of blank blank. I just don't want to have anything. I feel like YouTube is really edgy. I'm going to just censor everything I can, okay? He's critical of MAGA for not being conservative enough, and his followers are known as the gropers. He is an increasingly influential voice on the far right, and if you're familiar with anti-fatness, his statement is less shocking. After all, anti-fatness is a far-right ideology and is intrinsically linked to anti-blackness. Oh my goodness. It is no surprise that he is espousing traditional blank blank. Okay. So we're good. I'm told you I'm censoring everything on this article that I can. Okay. So to start with, I don't even know. I don't know what's more offensive to YouTube. Let me just react to that part. So I feel like I've always found it interesting to politicize the toxic ritualistic. I've never done it on this channel. I think, obviously politics can be applied to anything, basically, anything and everything. But I feel like it doesn't really do the issue justice. I feel like it's a way to hide it, or like it's a way to talk about things other than that, if that makes sense, than the issue. And a lot of times it's it goes back to what I've said, where especially people with BINGE, which I think William, my personal opinion of William is I think he's dealing with Mia. He's talking to Mia, which there is bingoing involved in that. So there's like some kind of overlap. But I feel like there's, when you're dealing with bingo, when you're playing bingo, replace the O with an E, there's so much like ideology behind it. It's all about like a belief system, using a belief to justify what you're doing, rather than like the visual reinforcement, which visual reinforcement, it can exist within bingo. I do want to make that clear because somebody was commenting that yesterday and they were like, it can happen. And I'm like, I do think it can, but it's usually more so from like a body horror perspective. Like when oh my gosh, I almost called her Gracie Abrams. That is not her name. Oh my gosh. When glitter and lasers, my brain is like a bunch of like, I don't know. It's like a bunch of girly pop. Like, I have maggots for brains right now. Okay. All I have is like girly pop stuff swirling around in my brain all the time. Anyways, glitter and lasers. Let's get back on topic, Alex. When she was like doing that thing where she went into the rocks and she was like hiking by herself and she was like bare knees on the rocks, scraping her body against everything, and she couldn't get out of the water when she was on the like in the ocean, that kind of stuff, that is visually reinforcing for bingo. It's that type of stuff. Or like when she was like, oh my gosh, I can't fit in the bathroom, that was enforcing, like reinforcing. So it's usually things like that. It's stuff that causes anxiety about being fat specifically, and because fatness is not really framed as aspirational within the TR specifically, it can be within certain FETISH spaces. That's totally valid, and there can be some TR overlap with that for sure. But most people that are in the TR, they're not dealing with that, in my opinion. I think it can happen though, obviously. And I think a lot of times when you have the TR and you're especially dealing with bingo, you can like appeal to those people or try to use it. But the TR is the primary thing. But within those spaces, there can be some aspirational stuff, but that's not typical. So typically it's not, because you have to frame fatness as victimhood. So therefore, it's not reinforcing at all, basically, on a visual level in that sense. Like I said, body horror, yes, absolutely. So that stuff, yes, that can be 100%. So there are those areas, but usually it's ideology. So it's politics, religion, spirituality. You could even use atheism to justify it. They'll use anything and everything. Anything from, I've told you guys, like libertarianism to feminism to spiritualism to just anything and everything that you can come up with. They will use it to justify. So William has to frame it as a left-right issue. William is very much on the left, and so he's criticizing the right and saying that the right is toxic ritualistic, although on this channel we acknowledge that there's no political like affiliation with the TR. It just is, and people use it within it. So I do think that there are toxic ritualistic things going on the right. I think out of these examples, the one that I think actually is clavicular. I think he is. I think he's basically, my opinion of him, which again, this is just my opinion, I think he's talking to Anna. but I think he's mild. It's a mild case. Because in my opinion, he's got issues with his body. Like there's something going on. You know what I'm saying? And he's done stuff to downsize that is very like unsavory and kind of, I don't want to get too into the details of it because I can't really talk about, especially the reductive side, hardly at all on YouTube. And I also, so all I'm saying is I think he is. So out of all of them, I think he is. I don't know this person that much. I'm like really out of it. I haven't been paying as much attention to politics. I told you I have a bunch of like girly pop stuff like just swirling around. I'm familiar with Andrew Tate and I'm familiar with Nick Fuentes. I don't think they are TR. I think they're just, for lack of a better term, dickish. So I also have my own theories about Nick Fuentes, but I don't want to get into it. But I think he's gay, but I'm just going to leave that there. I think he is. I think it's basically known. I shouldn't say this. Why am I talking like this? Stop it, Alex. I don't need to get into this. The point is, you are dealing with migraine, Alex, right now. Anyways, we're moving on. Okay, we're moving on. So, but yeah, I don't know if that's what William's picking up on with him. I don't think that he's TR, though. I don't. I think he has other issues, put to you that way. So, okay. That might be a hot take. I don't care. Auntie doesn't care anymore. I don't care anymore. I really don't care with my migraine either. And if you want to bring it up, William, then I guess whatever. Okay. It is no surprise, blah, 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 da, da, da. Okay. Where was I? Okay, blank a blank blank. Men's blanking blank blank is on the rise. Men's toxic ritualistic are on the rise, particularly for men and boys who have any proximity to the Manosphere, the loose network of online men's rights thoughts leaders whose best and brightest include Andrew Tate, Jordan Peterson, and Myron Gaines. So, I think Myron is from Fresh and Fit, right? I don't think he's TR necessarily, but he's, if he is who I think he is, if he was on like the, oh my God, I almost want to say Pilates. What the hell? Gosh, my brain is on another level. If he was on the Jubilee thing, I don't think he's TR. I think he's just really strict about it. And he's just like not attracted to fatness at all, which I don't think that that's necessarily TR. So I don't see it. The only person I'm seeing is Clav. I think Clav is. That's the one where I'm like, I'm clocking him. I'm clocking the T. I think he is. I'm clocking the TR with Clav. But anyways, I've been sounding the alarm on men's blankety blank blank for over half a decade. But they have recently entered the mainstream in a significant and unavoidable way. The rise of the Manosphere has ushered us straight into this resoundingly fascist moment in our history. And with fascism comes body fascism. It's explicitly apparent in MAGA's administration policy. Gosh. So body fascism, I think he's written about it before. I have a really hard time even buying into the concept because to me it's giving TR. It's giving TR. Like, it's a little bit weird, you know. I'm like, and it sounds just like one of those terms that's just made up, you know. That's what I hear, at least in my auntie brain right now. I'm like, this sounds like a made up term. So it gives TR to me. As far as the Manosphere and the TR, I don't think most of like the voices, not that I'm like super on point with like everybody in that space, I'm not. But I don't think most of the people are TR in it. I think some of the followers are though. So I think when you get into like especially the look smack seeing like Reddits and things like that, I do think there are plenty of men talking to Anna in those spaces, but I think it's more so the followers and it's that kind of thing. So it does exist. There is a connection for sure. But I don't think that it's like every single person. You know what I'm saying? I just don't. I think it's mostly, the Manosphere is mostly political, in my opinion. So, anyways. This was on display just yesterday when it was reported that in order for service members to get free tickets to the UFC match that will be held at the White House next month, ticket recipients are required to meet the Dow waist to height ratio standard of less than 0.55, as well as all service specific physical fitness test requirements in accordance with Pete Hegseth's mandate in September that there will be no fat troops or fat generals or admirals in the halls of the Pentagon. Okay. Oh gosh, I feel like I should know more about this. Ooh, I'm feeling like a flop right now. I don't really have an issue with not having fat troops. I don't know. Is that a hot take? It seems like a physical job, you know? There's a lot of stuff that can make you not qualify. So I don't know. Whatever. I don't know. And I do think it's hypocritical for leadership to be overweight within the military. So that's my opinion. That's just like my basic opinion. It's no wonder that more and more men are struggling with you know what and body image. Okay. I just think it's ironic because Trump is fat. I just have to say that. So I just think it's ironic. I really do. I'm just like, I don't know. I think it's just political. It's like, I feel like sometimes people like William, they are so used to conflating it that they don't understand what is just political and not TR. It's like, it's almost like he can't see something as political if it isn't also in the TR. You know what I'm saying? Because he's so used to conflating the two. But it's like there are people that are political, or there are movements that are political. There are things that are political. You know what I'm saying? So I'm like, I don't know. I think that's just like a policy decision. I don't think that that's TR, you know? Anyways, if the rise of men's blankety blank and body obsession hasn't been apparent to you until recently, that's completely understandable. I would argue that they are everywhere you look, but we don't see things we don't know how to look for, or we don't know to look for. So I would just say too, there's a shift of generation. I think a lot of people don't acknowledge that like the TR is hitting Gen Z men differently, you know, and it's a shift. So it's like you have to consider it, right? Or you have to consider that we're in a different time. It's not 2015 anymore. It's not 2005 anymore, right? So it's like, it's not always that like men are suddenly going into the TR. It's more that there are more men within that demographic or that generation that are more into it for whatever reason, whether that be genetically, trauma-based, etc. It seems to be going in that direction. Maybe they're just less into drugs and alcohol, so they've found something else, or, there's just different things. Because like with millennials, it was a lot of, well, it was a lot of TR too, but it was a lot of everything. I don't know. I just feel like millennials were just like on a highway to hell, basically. I don't know what else to tell you, and I feel like at this point, a lot of us have passed away or are about to, or we had to let go of our vices or we wouldn't live. So I don't know. Millennials are like a different thing, but it seems like with Gen Z, it's hitting different, where that seems to be something that's hitting Gen Z men. And I do think that we do have to consider it and look at it and all those things for sure. So that's my whole point, or like my view of it is that. But no, I don't buy that it's political. I don't. It's it's just TR. Okay. Anyways, have you noticed that men in your life have gotten really into their health, quote unquote, in the past few years? Really into going to the gym, really into consuming to support their gains and won't stray from their very specific diets? Welcome to Men's Toxic Ritualistic. You might see them in your son, your boyfriend, your cousin, or your students. Wherever there are men in your life, particularly in the West, you can almost be certain the toxic ritualistic is spreading and thriving. I don't agree. I don't know. I think that that's too broad of a definition. I don't know. Like, I'm trying to think about what I've observed, even just on social media, and I don't see it all the time. I still feel like bingo is the most common, but I think it just is in general. Like binge is just the most common. So I see that. Like there's a lot of mid-sized princess energy for those of you guys who follow my channel. You know what that is. Like there's a lot of that in men. A lot. A lot. But it's like that's all bingo related for the most part. And other than that, it's like there are some guys that are like, if you're above 10%, then you're fat, stuff like that, which I'm like, ooh, that's getting at least into like mild talking to Anna. It's not always like so severe, but it is delusional. Like if you actually think that that's fat, you're actually delusional, So it's like we do have to take that seriously. I know but what I see a lot of, if I were to be real about it, is it's like commenters, people who observe, people who watch, like who are in Reddit threads and that kind of stuff. That's what I see more of. I don't think it's as much like social media influencers and stuff like that. I do think it does exist, like I said, but I think it's mostly the one that's just in the forums, that kind of thing. Well, the one that's in the looks maxing forum. It's that type of guy, or the guy that's like so sure that being in shape will get him a girlfriend. Like to the point that it's a religious belief in him, where it's like he has that level. To me, that's a red flag. If you see a guy talking about it in that way, like if I do this, I can control an outcome. That's where it's like, ooh, I'm sensing Pennywise. I'm seeing the spores. I feel like there's something off. I see the red balloon. I see the spores, right? I see something. I see the zombieism coming out. There's something wrong. And there are definitely a lot of like level 1 zombies that are men. So for those of you guys who don't know, I use like the Last of Us zombies as a metaphor for how the toxic ritualistic people all like exist in a collective and like push their agenda. And there are a lot of like runners, so level 1 runner zombies that are men, and they're kind of like talking to Mia-ish, where it's like there's a lot of bulking and a lot of like overdoing it and then heading to the gym, like to the point where they're almost getting injured, that kind of thing. Or it's like it's kind of on the edge, or they're using so many substances and stuff to like boost their performance or boost their outcome, that kind of stuff. It's like to me, that's getting into level 1 zombie, where there's a little something off there, but they're not quite in it, because you still have to be like, diagnosable basically. So it's like subclinical. And then there's some guys that are like subclinical bingo, where it's like they're constantly on a bulk and cut, and sometimes those swings can be pretty drastic, and if they get drastic enough, then they are within bingo, like they do have the problem, but it can get close. And then same thing with talking to Anna, it's like you can be subclinical, you can be somebody who's, you think if somebody's above 15% body fat, you think they're fat. And it's like, okay, it's a bit much. So, but it's like, then you have the guys that are legitimately like getting too low in body fat. And it's like, oh, and they might have muscle, but I still would consider that like a mild case, of talking to Anna. You know what I'm saying? So there's nuances to it. I do see what William's saying, but it's mostly subclinical and mild. I don't see a lot of like extremely severe, because even like Clav, I consider him a mild case. I do think he's in it, but he's more mild. So that's what I see a lot of. It does seem like when I usually see somebody who's really severe, they're usually a woman. So that's what I see a lot, is that kind of thing. Usually with men, it's like you'll see the tons of mid-sized princesses. There's tons of them. There's so many of those, okay? So there's a lot of bingo guys that are like in that mid zone and very like, everyone hates me because I'm bad and da-da-da, So there's a lot of that. But it's rarer to find like a guy that's a stage 3 zombie, that's a clicker, basically. You don't usually see it. So it seems like, in my observation as somebody who does this work and talks about it all the time, I feel like it's more mild. So it can exist, or it does exist. Mild is a problem because mild can become severe, right? Mild is risky. And then there's plenty of runners. So there's plenty of subclinical guys. But then there's plenty of guys that are just normal. You know what I'm saying? Like, I still think the majority are just normal. So you have to like, I don't know, like not assume that because a guy is an asshole, for example, that he has the TR. Not necessarily, Like for me personally, I can't stand Jacob Foods as a person. That's just like a random Instagram person that I cannot stand. But he is not in the TR. He's not. He's a wolf. He's in it for the money. So he'll say things to kind of pander to the zombies for money. And there's plenty of that. So it's like, again, like Andrew Tate being an asshole doesn't mean that he's in the TR. You know what I'm saying? He's just an asshole. So I feel like, I think William's being stupid. I just think he's dumb, but I think you guys knew that already. That's kind of like, duh. I always say that about him. Anyways, are boys and men really looks maxing, or are they toxic ritualistic maxing? Looks maxing, that's a term you've almost certainly heard in the past year, or you've at least heard the suffix maxing enter the popular vernacular. But what is it? According to a BBC report from 2024, the aim of looks maxing to become the most attractive one can possibly look according to their set of prescribed criteria, or to a set of prescribed criteria with particular importance given to jawlines, eyes, and physique, including hunter eyes, angled slightly upward towards the temples, a positive something tilt, whatever. I can't right now. Perhaps you've heard of I can't even clavicular, a far-right streamer who has become the face of look smashing by, among other things, promoting jaw smashing, a practice aimed at making one's jaw more defined by literally smashing your jaw with a hammer to create microfractures that heal into more bone mass. Please do not do this. He's also been profoundly open about blankety blank and his blank blank as a means of look smashing. He recently blanked. So why? Why smash your jaw with a hammer? The Manosphere has adopted the idea that you as a man are born with no inherent value, that your worth must be earned. One of the many ways that the Manosphere purports that a man can earn value is by changing his physical appearance, by slimming down, bulking up, and changing his facial structure, essentially meeting the Eurocentric beauty standards of the Adonis right down to the face. So I would say, like, I don't think there's anything wrong with pursuing looks. I've told you guys that. I think pursuing looks can be a good thing, but it can obviously lead you into like insanity if you're not careful. I think it's something that women have done forever. So I don't think it's bad for men to do it. But again, as Miss Taylor Swift says, beauty is a beast that roars down on all fours, demanding more, right? You got to be careful. There is madness in it if you're not careful, and you don't ever put your health below your pursuit of looks. So, yeah. You don't do that. No, 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 no. Don't do that. Don't do that. So, yeah, you're not going to do that. But there's nothing wrong with pursuing looking better. So I don't think like self-improvement or looking better is bad at all. I just don't whatsoever. So if that's where William's going with that, I'm like, no. I'm like, try again. But obviously there can be TR stuff within that. There can be madness, body dysmorphia, that kind of stuff. It can get kind of wild if you're not careful. So don't go crazy. And then you can't assume that you're going to have money because of it or a girlfriend because of it, stuff like that. It's like, you got to be careful because that gets into that TR. That's a little TR logical. It's like you're getting close to it because then you're starting to whenever you start to treat your body like I don't know. It's hard to describe it, but like in this ritualistic way, or like a one wish willow or something, it's like you whenever you treat your body like, if I do this, then this will happen. And that's involved with consumption, then it's TR, if that makes any sense. Because if you try to control your body to control other outcomes, that's getting into TR territory. But it does have to do with consumption. So if it has nothing to do with that, then you just have like body dysmorphia or something. But if it does have to do with it, and weight becomes like the most important thing in that equation, that's where we're getting into TR. Then it's like, okay, here we go, So it can happen, but yeah, I hope I'm making sense. I'm trying to talk to y'all through like migraine brain. Okay, so please have grace with me. Please have grace. Please do. Okay. Okay. Blah, blah, blah. So I would agree with this take. I do think the Manosphere does teach that for sure. Okay. Meaning, I'd be remiss not to point out that these male beauty ideals are rooted in white supremacy and influenced by the outdated junk science of phrenology. I think a lot of it, too, is it's like a lot of guys that get super into that stuff, they're often, this is so mean, I just have to say it, they're often introvert cringe. And so they're just looking for like a system to predict outcomes. And instead of using like astrology or something, which again, that's, you can be bad at it. Let's be real. You can suck at astrology. But instead of using something like that, they'll use like a looks maxing chart. And then that can predict if this will work, or, well, that's your looks match and all that stuff. Like, those two people should be together. These two people shouldn't. It just gets into a lot of like this, like very fantasy, very cringe, very, very introvert cringe. It's just introvert cringe, but that's not TR. You know, that's introvert cringe, where it's like, well, this person looks like this and that person looks like that, so they should be together, but they shouldn't. But da da da. And it's like, yeah, but reality is they are. It happens all the time. And your system is flawed because there's a lot of examples of it not existing, or it not working out that way, or the guy does look better, but he still can't get a girlfriend. You know, that happens all the time. So it's like, but that's not TR, that's introvert cringe flop logic, which is a different issue. So I'm like, William, there are issues here. There are valid criticisms of the Manosphere. But saying that they all have the TR, I think it's just too much. It's too much of a stretch. It's too much of a stretch, in my opinion. Okay, and unfortunately, because we live under a patriarchal society, these changes generally affect access to privilege, despite the social and mental ills they bring about. See, so that's where he's doing that toxic ritualistic, thin privilege, that whole like reinforcement. Because of course, William can't write an article without reinforcing the TR. Emily Contois, author of Diners, Dudes, and Diets, theorizes that this shift in the morality and value of men's physical appearance was exacerbated by the Great Recession, particularly for millennial men, and continuing on into Generation Z and Alpha. Up until 2008, patriarchal society required men to be the provider for their families and or gradually accumulate wealth to be considered high-value men. When the Great Recession happened, being the earner and or provider became a near economic impossibility. I think that is kind of way too simplistic and stupid, honestly. So I will tell you my explanation. I've told you guys that for whatever reason, and this is not necessarily the fault of Gen X women, but I think that there was just a lot of factors with Gen X women specifically where there was a very high prevalence of the toxic ritualistic in that demographic. And they have raised Gen Z sons, and that's why there's a slightly higher percentage, or not slightly, but there's a higher percentage. I think it has more to do with the socialization, being brought up by a mother that has that issue or struggled with that issue. Again, it's no shade at all. There was obviously something going on because in all my research and stuff, I see that it seems to have peaked at that within that demographic specifically. So I just think, my opinion is I think there's just a lot of trauma within Gen X women in general. And that's, I don't want to get too into it, but I'm just saying that's what I think happened. That's my explanation. It's more complex than just the Great Recession because the Great Recession didn't affect everybody equally. It didn't affect everybody across all states in the same way, across all countries in the same way. Like, it just doesn't, I think it's a little bit too simplistic. That's my opinion, you know? So I guess she can say that. I disagree with that. I don't think that expectation just magically went away after 2009, that men were not expected to be providers after 2009. I just think that's kind of stupid. So yeah, I just don't agree with that. I think it's too simplistic. But anyways, that's my opinion. Okay, so how do you uphold a system of oppression like the patriarchy if the people tasked with upholding it no longer feel worth? You shift the definition of what it means to be a member, a real man. The lack of potential for financial success left a void in what made up the identity of a man in good standing with the patriarchy, and that void was readily filled by the way a man looks. Suddenly, the way a man looked and ate and moved had far more influence on their identity as men. I don't agree with that either. I think this is really simplistic. I do think that it mattered before 2008 if you were fat or thin. I do think it did, at least somewhat. I do think if you were in shape in the 90s as a man, it was better to be in shape than to be fat. Sure, you know. So I just don't agree with this. I think it's too simplistic. I think it's too simplistic. I'm just saying, I do think looks mattered for a guy before 2008. Just like I do think money still mattered after 2008. I think it's just, I don't, whatever. I think it's too like, he's forcing it too much. Or maybe she is too. But again, the one who wrote the book might be a zombie too. So you got to watch out with these types of books because, there's like black and white thinking in that. The fitness and wellness industries made a hard pivot to selling diets to men. This is all in accordance with body fascism, which places an emphasis on the militarization of the bodies in the populace, not only in ability but also in aesthetic. Notably, it is a lot easier to control people who are hungry and hyper-focused on changing their bodies rather than the world and systems around them. That is one of the main reasons diet culture was pushed so heavily onto women in the wake of second-wave feminism, as pointed out by Christy Harrison in Anti-Diet. Oh, gosh. Remember that the toxic ritualistic, it comes from extreme physical stress and trauma. So always remember that. But it's important to remember that in the same way the patriarchy mandates how women should look, patriarchy also mandates how men should look. The men of the Manosphere will have you believe that they have to change how they look in order to meet women's standards for men's bodies, but they are scapegoating. Men set the social and structural expectation for how both women and men should look. These are patriarchal mandates. So So is he trying to say that men decide what women find attractive? Because I disagree with that. Because if you look at like looks-maxing communities, what a lot of those men think is more attractive, women disagree. And who they choose to date, who they choose to commit to, who they choose to marry, it shows that there's a different story. And that the standards are not exactly what men dictate. So I'm just like, I don't agree with that. I don't think that exists in practice, at least. What I do think is interesting is that Gen Z is really different in the sense that what you have going on with Gen Z is you have an inversion of certain gender expectations and stereotypes. So this I find interesting just because it's something I've observed, and I've told you guys I've been like obsessed with attachment style work and all that stuff, which yes, I'm auntie and I'm cringe millennial and all of it, whatever. You can just hate me. After this video, just hate me. Just hate my guts. But what I've noticed is a lot in the past, the anxious attached person was typically viewed as female or as a woman. So like the one who's a little bit more clingy, the one who needs reassurance all the time, the one who needs all those things, that was framed as feminine. And then the one who's avoidant, so the one who craves distance or fears intimacy or all that kind of stuff, was framed as masculine. And that was definitely the stereotype in the millennial generation, and I think it was certainly the case in Gen X. But what people don't understand about attachment style issues is that your kids tend to be the opposite of you. So like if your mom is avoidant, like an avoidant mom is likely to have an anxious daughter. An anxious daughter is likely to have an avoidant daughter. You see? So it shifts over the generations. So what you have a lot of is you have a lot of Gen Z men being anxiously attached. So they're more clingy. They're more seeking reassurance. They're doing all these things. So a part of that is getting in shape. Like in the past, a lot of women were more anxiously attached. So they would focus on being in shape a lot because they want to appeal to more people. Whereas you had the opposite. So you have a lot of Gen Z women that are very avoidant and they don't want to date and they fear intimacy and they're terrified of like losing themselves in a guy and all that stuff. You see that all the time. I see it constantly with Gen Z women. And so a lot of times they won't care about how they look or they won't care about being in shape because of that. But you see how it's not easy to politicize that. And I'm not even coming at it from a place of judgment. I just think, we should work on being more secure, blah, 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 basic bitch, millennial auntie take. I know I'm old now and I'm irrelevant and I'm not cool because I'm not going to make everything about politics. But I just think that there are other explanations for this, is my point, that aren't completely E followed by the letter D. I think that there's just a lot of stuff. And I think Gen Z is inverting that expectation on a gender basis. So it's like there's a lot of anxiously attached men that are like, I have to get in shape so that I can get a girlfriend, so that a girl will like me. And so they think of it that way. And it's like, yeah, but also like, you have to like, balance out a bit too. There's more to it than that, right? Like I was more on the avoidance side. I can lose weight, but if I'm still a crazy, fearful, avoidant girly pop, I'm still going to have fucking huge issues in dating. Even no matter how great I look, I'm going to have a problem. So I just think that people just don't understand that there's just so many like multifaceted issues in this. And I understand that like expecting William, who's a freaking bloater, psycho TR person, to actually like cover this well is like an expectation that's never going to happen. But I have to like provide an argument against what he's saying, and that's what I see. So I know this is really weird, but once again, I have a migraine. So I'm just going to keep using that as an excuse. Anyways. Last year, I was on the panel moderated by Chelsea Clinton at the United Nations for World Blankety Blank Action Day held by the National Alliance for NIDA. And I made the point that blankety blank are miserable. The patriarchy is miserable, and the patriarchy is being run by a lot of men with blankety blank, which means the rest of us will be miserable too. I stand by that statement. So again, I don't think politicizing it helps. I don't. I really don't. I think talking to men about being more secure in themselves, I think would be a good conversation to have. I think talking to men about setting their own standards for their body, like a healthy standard, I think that's a good conversation to have. I think, there's a lot of conversations to be had. I'll put it to you that way. I think there's a lot of things that could actually help. But I don't think politicizing the toxic ritualistic helps. I just don't. I don't. Okay. Men are the ones insisting that men look smacks. Again, I think a lot of those men are anxiously attached, so they want a girlfriend. They're like, this is how I got one. I think it's simpler than what you're thinking, William. Men are the ones assigning high value to lean and muscular physiques. Men are the ones driving men into a culture of blankety blank and body image. And remember, too, that when you are anxiously attached, you assume that you must earn love or that you can earn love from somebody. Remember that. So that's where the psychology is coming from, which that's not necessarily TR. If you are, it's just still flawed logic is all. So it's just a different conversation to be had because, yeah. Anyways. Oh, gosh. Okay, men are the ones driving men into a culture of blankety blank and body image. Men are the ones at the helm of the contagion that is men's blankety blank. And in that vein, it is on men to change the society we live in, to dismantle the patriarchy that is upheld by men and harms everyone, including men. So I would say, like, the TR is more of an individual issue. And it is your responsibility to recover. It's your responsibility to get out of it. I don't believe in blaming it on society for men or women or anybody. I don't believe in that. But I do think that there are trends, and, you know, you can talk about like a demographic, like Gen Z men, for example, and you can break down some of the issues that they may be having. You can talk about Gen Z women. Like, you can talk about trends too. Like, I would tell a Gen Z girly that's avoidant or that doesn't care about having a man, I'd be like, well, you still need to be in shape because it's for your own health. And, you know, don't use the TR to avoid connection with others. You know what I'm saying? Like, because there is a TR drive within that too, you know? So it's like, there might be different advice I would give to Gen Z women in general. You know what I'm saying? Or different problems, that kind of stuff. And so it's like, you don't want to cut yourself off from a genuine connection or from intimacy or these types of things. And you certainly don't want to use the TR to do that. Just like if you're a more anxiously attached Gen Z man, you don't want to go into the TR to try to earn love of a woman. I don't think that that's good. I don't, you know? But those are just generational trends. You know what I'm saying? It's a trend, and it will probably shift in another 10 to 20 years, and the girls will be back to being anxious and the boys will be back to being avoidant. You know what I'm saying? Like, it just shifts. So it's not like personal. It's just like, you know, it is what it is. You know what I'm saying? I don't know. Oh, gosh. Licks maxing or blankety blank maxing does indeed grant men more privilege in our society. So there it goes again, reinforcing. But a society where how you look determines your privilege will always cause harm and be oppressive. You should not have to push your body to, you know what, to be considered worthy of life, liberty, and happiness. I wish I had the answer for how to stop this, but pointing it out and talking about it is a step in the right direction. I don't think you helped, William. You just politicized the TR, and it doesn't help. It just distracts from the problem, in my opinion, which I'm not saying I was like on point in this because I have a migraine, but again, I will not engage with William totally lucid because I just can't with him. So it is what it is, you know. I hope we can stop this. We need to stop this. Men need to stop this. But until then, we are going to sink further into a culture of body fascism and continue blankety blank maxing. Okay, so that's all. Let me know what you guys think. I had a lot of thoughts in this, actually. And some are kind of jumbled and weird. And I have a migraine. So let me know what you guys thought. I will talk to you guys later. Bye.